Welcome back to It Starts Now, the happy hour of finance and business. My name is Stanley.
And my name is Nicole Bovell of Bovell Law Firm LLC.
So, Nicole, we're glad to have you today. I know your background, there's a lot that's going on, especially graduating from the University of Syracuse and starting your whole, well, I guess sort of like your career path, right? From a young age, because you
Yes,
volunteered at the family court. You want to dive into that?
yes. I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer since the age of 4. So my mom had a family friend who was a judge at the time, and he was one of the youngest judges. He got nominated at 35, and I would volunteer my summers when I came back from Temple University, and I would sit in on the family court. And the family court, if I could give you a glimpse of it for the viewers, represented what you see on Judge Judy. It was a lot of entertainment, and it was a lot of learning, and things of that nature, like mediation and stuff like that. But um, the good thing is, I found that I still want to do law, and the other thing was that I did not want to practice family law, and that still stands today. I do not engage in family law. It's too emotional, too heartbreaking, and there are a lot of factors that go into getting people to see eye to eye.
That I can't even imagine because sometimes when I'm watching those family court shows,
Mhm.
and I'm shocked that these people actually um, go on TV and I don't want to use the wrong word, but ridicule themselves basically.
That's
Um,
how it is. That's how it is. They embarrass themselves. We have a lot of characters. We have people who think that they can outsmart people, so they tell lies. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense. But if you want to roll with it, roll with it. And then you have characters um, who come in and they have lawyers and stuff. And if they listen to their lawyer's strategy, they would win. And I've seen someone throw away an entire case that was in their favor because they decided to make it emotional. So I think that's just a play, even for business. You have to know how to separate your emotions from the situation. Sometimes you have to know how to step back, and people just don't know how to play these cards in their favor. I mean, it is almost the legal world, and anything you're dealing with, even in the professional, you have to know when to play cards. I'm not saying that you won't feel pain, you won't feel hurt, but you have to know when to step back from emotion and use logic in a situation, especially logic that will bring about the best results that you're seeking. So
so mostly the stuff is strategy then.
I believe it is, because if I'm saying my ex is abusive, and one particular case that I'm thinking about, this lady did not want the guy to stay with the ex. He was abusive. He had beat her many times, but she got on the stand and she started talking about everything else about him cheating on her, having maids and all this stuff, and him, which in this day would be different, him taking her up as a young bride, but he had her parental consent. Whereas today they would press charges for statutory rape, because
Mhm.
she admitted that it was statutory rape, even though the parents agreed and it was consensual. She got on there and cried, and I think that she forgot to tell the story. I stood outside because most of the time I was with the court clerk while the judge was in his chambers.
Mhm.
When I saw the attorney speak to her, this is what you're going to say, you're not going to say that. Once she did that, the judge determined that she had no reason to keep the child away. But what she should have been stressing was the domestic abuse charges and things like that. It's unsafe because he's done XYZ. I feel like he's hit the child. It's been excessive. You have to have some kind of strategy. You can't go in there and she was crying in all the tissues. This is not a Dr. Phil moment. This is a court. You're before a judge. There's certain elements that they're considering, and they're checking off those elements. Just like for a lot of these high strategy cases, the 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 prosecutor will talk to the judge, and the judge may tell you what evidence they're admitting into court. So you may find that you see in the news that they had this video, but then when you get to court, because of the evidence rules, it's excluded. So you have to have a strategy, just like if there are two co-defendants. What do sometimes, if they have different lawyers, they do? They turn the story that this one did it. I didn't do it. I shot him. Just like, okay, a controversial case right now. I go
Hmm.
into Megan the Stallion and Tory Lanez.
Correct.
She came forward and she gave a statement under pressure. And my personal opinion is it was better she had kept her mouth closed, and especially him. I think that it was a bad look
Hmm.
for him to come on and talk. And up to today, I won't call judgments of who shot who or who did it. When she came on and started to talk and give her emotions, and I thought people were my friends, that is true. I agree with you on a moral level. I feel that it was wrong for people to attack her, to antagonize her, and frankly, the people that are doing it are dumb. You do not have a case and you start talking, whether it's a lawsuit or civil, you keep your mouth shut.
Hmm.
That case is there because you now are giving that lawyer something to work with. So I may have had nothing against your case, but when you open your mouth and you don't have a lawyer there and you
You
start
disclose
talking,
everything.
yes, and that's why in depositions, when you have a deposition, lawyers will object. People try to ask you these underlying crazy questions, out of control questions. Even for Jeffrey Epstein, they asked him what was the size of his private parts. That was crazy. And notice he got up and walked out and the lawyer objected. There's a reason why. You want to be careful with talking. And if you talk too much, you'll end up in danger, even if you are correct. And she gave him some material to work with, his lawyer's material to work with, that they will try to get into court. She said she was walking away, um, and Tory Lane shot me. She used the derogatory terms.
Right.
And when you say you were walking away, girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't do that. Keep that to yourself. When you say that, it could have been anyone. As far as we know, there were
Oh,
4.
that's true.
And when you open, he comes out saying all this stuff. He never said in his thing whether he shot her or not. But because she gave him that material, he was able to go with it. People saying, oh, you weren't shot. And then she's saying that the doctor has evidence that she was shot. And that, to me, confirms there was some kind of shooting. People are arguing as over abrasions, and I'm not going to do that because I am not a doctor. I don't know that for a fact. But if a doctor is saying that, I'm certain there's certain things in medical evidence that proves 9 out of 10 times if this occurs, you've been shot. It may not be to the degree of someone else who has all their bones shattered, but you don't give people more than they need. So when you have a legal proceeding, you keep your mouth shut so that your lawyer can work strategies, because that is what lawyers do. And even I had to come to grips with that. So everyone needs representation,
Hmm.
not a moral grounds, not emotional grounds. Some people, I'm like, how could you represent them? You have no morals, you have no character. And what people look for, good defense attorneys, we know they did it, you know they did it, but you're coming up with a strategy, just like the famous Johnny Cochran case. If the glove doesn't fit, it must acquit. They didn't tell you all the stuff he was taking for that glove for the glove to fit. They didn't tell you how how the materials and leather changed, which may
Changes
have
over.
affected.
Right.
Yes.
Hmm.
So you have to play along with your lawyer. There are times where you have to ignore the guidance of a lawyer because some lawyers are not for you. And I let people know this from the jump. If you feel a lawyer is not representing you, because we do have people that have law degrees, and that's
Hmm.
every profession, you have good and the bad. But if you have people with law degrees and you feel they're talking too much in a bankruptcy profession, you have to get rid of them. And you can terminate a relationship with a lawyer. Sometimes, depending on the type of case, there has to be some motion made by that same lawyer
Hmm.
and you terminate it. It gets difficult depending on the matter, so I don't want to get into specifics, but this is something that common people need to know. And that was one of the things that we are going to discuss, because people take things that they hear and they take it as fact and as truth. And I know it's not true
Right. You can't
because,
take everything at face value.
yes, and it goes back to what we said is strategy, a word that I hated, but It's strategy. I like to be authentic. I mean, you're also my friend outside of this, so you know that we thrive off authenticity. That's
Right.
what makes us up. That makes up our personality, and
Correct.
that makes what why we have a connection. And most of the times, if I come out to an event, why I get along with your friends, because we all are based off of that principle of authenticity and
Mm-hmm.
realness.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
have to strategize, and everything over time has taught me about strategizing. For instance, since we're talking about finance and business, we'll start
Mm-hmm.
there. Contract. Right now, the contract world is shaky. But the thing I tell people is, despite what you've heard on these popular law programs,
Mm-hmm.
or your street corner lawyer without the degree or the bar licensing, you can sign a contract. And if the court determines it's unfair, or
Mm-hmm.
you want to walk away, you can walk away. Now, morally, everyone won't agree with that. Um, and this is even in cases where 99.99%
Mm-hmm.
people are known in that industry to win. Why do I say that? I'm
Okay.
going beyond the textbook knowledge. I've had cases from, I remember the first year I was out of law school, and I had a friend that signed an ironclad deal with a gym. He's actually a mutual friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
And he could not get out the contract. He did something idiotic. He deserved to be in that contract. I told him, give me the papers. We were able to get him out of that contract. Now people are able to break contracts with that establishment, and I think they faded away as a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to know that just because I put my name and sign something, I'm not bound by it. That is true, especially if it's criminal. The court will not do it. If it's
Right.
unfair, if
But
you
what
have
if it's
another,
if it's a contract where there's money involved?
you, that's where I'm getting to. There are
Okay.
nuances. You will not be able to walk away from every contract scot-free. For instance, we'll go back to Megan Thee Stallion. She makes a good um, popular culture reference for the legal world.
Mm-hmm.
She found that her contract with Carl Crawford was unjust. He has tapes of her signing it. When she signed it, when she toasted, she didn't see anything wrong with it, and she was laughing with him. She wants to walk away. In that case, Megan's not walking away free. Megan will not walk away free because there's money involved. He made investments. We know he made investments, and
Mm-hmm.
he can prove that he spent money, even if she thinks it's that other guy from Houston who she's acquainted with,
Mm-hmm.
was giving her the money. That's not his money. It was coming from Carl Crawford. He can show he made investments. What the court will do is try to make each party whole. So you can't walk away out of an obligation that you were supposed to pay money and just walk away just like that. It's
Right.
not going to happen. However, there are cases where you can. It would have to be, you'd have to prove some craziness or act of God happened that you couldn't perform the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that you can walk away from your responsibilities. But I'm saying there's some contracts and there's some terms that companies try to hold people to, and it's unconscionable and it's unfair, and you can walk away. I had someone who was tied to celebrity, and me being the smaller person, he signed a contract, and he was like, oh, I didn't sign nothing, because clients never tell lawyers the truth. And for anyone listening, please, when you come to us, don't tell us what you think will win the case. Tell us the
Mm-hmm.
whole story. We will take the facts. We will come up with a strategy. We will develop the arguments. Because I found in law, and even though I say this, people lie to their lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And you, as a lawyer, find out it maybe when it's too late, or you could have changed the strategy at trial, or when your hands are tied. And he argued, and I said, you know what? I know that's not true. I know those people, and this is how the industry works. And I had to tell him the truth. I'm not like other lawyers who lie to people. I don't think that you can get away with this. I'm going to contact the other side, contact their lawyer. So I contact this television network, and I spoke with him, and I asked them to not use whatever they were planning to use, and we walked away. And he got out of that contract. And today, I thank God, the good Lord, that that footage has never been used. and he wanted to sue. And I know that it's only one case I've heard of recently that you get out with networks, because I hear people having suits because they have lawyers to the gods, and
Yeah.
they will make
Yeah.
sure, and it's tight. Those
Yeah.
agreements are tight. You're not getting
Some
out.
companies have a floor of lawyers.
Yes, yes, and that's why. And Donald Trump is a prime example
Mm,
of having lawyers and using his lawyers. He talks big, but there was one thing I remember I watched with him where the kid had made hats similar
mm,
to his hats.
right.
I'm thinking, he won't be watching that. He doesn't know the kid. He found out, and he had his lawyers approach the kid, and they sued him. But in the end, the kid I paid out $100,000, and he had to stop making the hats.
Wow.
So yes, so there are times where you can be at fault and walk away. And the courts will not enforce something that's unfair. Do not believe because I put my name on that dotted line, I'm bound to be in some prison or something unfair. There are times where you have to break the contract. You have to break the lease, but make sure whatever you're breaking that you sign, that you have some valid basis. It's not because you want to run away from an obligation.
Mm,
Because the court has to make the person whole, and you have to come with money. That's the other thing. I had my first instance where this lady was trying to start a business, and it dealt with the trucking industry. And it seemed like she hired a lawyer, me, to walk away without paying the guy and return the truck. Nah, it doesn't work that
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
You may have suffered losses. We're sorry, but you got to make him whole. You got to come to the table with money. And I'm talking about other major players where it was businesses and we were the smaller guy. And that's the other thing, mistakes people make. They think because they hire some big shot that they're going to win. I know someone who's passed around in the celebrity world, and the dude is a hot mess. He doesn't win cases. He leaves them with stains, and that's not winning to me. Your client needs to walk away with some wholeness. Sometimes you're going to take some wounds, but it should not be to a caliber of 93%. What are you
Mm,
doing? Why are you on things? And I would
right.
constantly speak out against him. And it was because somebody I knew had made the papers, and they went to jail and had the guy just done legal research, which is what every lawyer needs to do. He would have been able to have that client walk out scot-free.
Now, a quick question. Are there cases where the person ends up paying more because they neglect their responsibilities?
Yes, it goes back to, is it an unconscionable situation?
Okay.
How unjust did you make it? Sometimes you pay more, and it goes back to your lawyer and negotiating. And the thing is, people have to understand the art of settling. You have some cases where people have these crazy ideas, and it comes back to watching TV, and they think that if they fight down to the ground, they're going to get what they want. Some cases, you don't have a case. The statute of limitations has told, it's run their course, and if someone puts money on the table, like, oh, I was supposed to perform this decree, this divorce decree, I was supposed to perform this. I agree that it happened, maybe it was due of 1994, now we're in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I agreed I was supposed to give you 100,000, but I'm going to give you 30 or 50. Take the 30 or 50, because when you go to court, you don't know if the judge is going to give you anything, and then you paid legal expenses. So you have to be aware of those things. And the other thing I would say to people, you might not have lawyer money to pay a lawyer, but still go see a lawyer. Sometimes you might have a winnable case, and the lawyer may charge you on a contingency basis, which means they pay the upfront costs. Maybe they might make you pay $2,000 or something less than $2,000, or maybe just the filing fees, because
Mm-hmm.
it does cost to file those documents. To file in court, sometimes on an average is $410 to start a lawsuit. But you try to see if somebody will take your case on a contingency basis, and you will not have to worry about those legal fees. Your lawyer will take care of getting the legal fees and you getting your damages. But the thing is, why contracts are so big with the pandemic, we have people breaching contracts.
Mm-hmm. Especially the renters, right?
Yeah, well, yes. Yes, and if we're going to get into that, we're going to get into that. We have people breaching contracts, wedding stuff. and they can't make it good. They don't have the money. The businesses went under. They're contemplating filing bankruptcy. And then we have wedding venues, which is heartbreaking. There was a case that made it to the news, and I hope the guy goes and sees a lawyer and starts a lawsuit. His fiance died in a car crash. He could prove it. The wedding hall, even though it was a pandemic, was requiring him to pay 40 grand and would
It's
not get back.
outrageous.
Yes. So we have a lot of those cases where contracts are being breached because of the pandemic. And I find it with wedding venues, and I have a problem with that. I think it's just good business principle to give back people part of their money. So these are cases that I would, if I was the parties, take to court and sue them for breach of contract, because you cannot take my money and refuse to return it or require me to pay money on something that you can't deliver. I can't pay for a party of 300, and with the pandemic, I can only seat 20 people. That is not fair to me.
Right.
So at this point, I'm not receiving the value of my service. So either you're going to give me a prorated rate. I believe the courts will have to decide, because it depends on what you sign. So I think that that's why contracts are a big deal. And then on other levels, people can't perform. They're out of business. They're one paycheck away from being homeless or having their home in foreclosure. And they're deciding between their business, which has kept them afloat all these years, or paying their personal bills. So you will have a lot of breach of contract. And I think the thing is now even businesses are petitioning the White House, because we have that up in limbo, as to what can you guys do to shield us from coronavirus lawsuits. Every time I go online, there's a coronavirus. I even got notifications that people are suing universities, because if you send the students home, and I paid for me to be on campus, and I pay room and board,
That's
and you
true.
send me home, what's good? I want my money.
Yeah.
What's good? Yeah, you got to do something prorated. If I stayed there and I was supposed to stay there from August to December, and you send me home in September, I want my money back. I paid for a meal plan. I need my money back, because I'm not eating all that stuff. So
Meal plan, room and board.
yes,
Yeah, everything.
yes. So you have to consider these things, and they started a class action. So contracts are being breached, and I think that's where lawyers are in limbo, because the pandemic has made you have to advise people on issues that you don't know how it's going to play out.
Right.
The things that people need to do, if you have a small business, you take precautions. Make sure you have a list of people who are coming in there. Make sure you file the requirements. If you're required by state law to have a mask, because we don't know how that's going to play out in the end. And have a list of people, and check your insurance. Check your insurance. You may need to update it. You may need to add loss of use and things like that, because a lot of people were finding out, business owners, that their insurance wasn't covering them. Like, you could file a loss of use, because this is a case of loss of use, because you have the pandemic. You don't have people flowing into your business as it is. So loss of use for insurance claims deal with, like, God forbid, I have someone next door to me who's building their home knock off my roof. It's not the fault of my insurance company, and according to general insurance, it wouldn't cover that. But if I pay for loss of use, the insurance will have to cover me possibly staying in a hotel. Any damages that I may incur just to make me whole for a time being. It will not be excessive. You're not going to get 1.5 million, but something livable that you don't go under financially. So I think that that's something that business owners need to look into. Following state guidelines, mandates, keep a toll of who's coming in and out of your place in case you're sued for someone contracting coronavirus. Make sure you have all the safety measures in place. The next thing is with people who run professional services. The thing is, cybersecurity is important. And we know this from before the pandemic, because we've had major cases where people are not telling the public the truth. Hey, they stole your information on the black market. We had Wyndham Hotel, the biggest violator, and the FTC stepped in and fined them. And best believe that today people are more knowledgeable I find that people know more of the law today and they will call those numbers. So you want to make sure you have a system in place where you're protecting people's private information. If you're dealing with Social Security, anything of a private nature, medical information, have a cybersecurity program in place. God forbid that someone tries to attempt to breach. And also the reason it matters for businesses and even small businesses is because everyone's working from home. So if I'm working from home, I have my husband, I have other people coming in and out of my house. You have to have safety measures in place for your employees so that you eliminate the risk of information being breached, because you can be held liable and you can even be held liable by the government and have to pay penalties. So I wanted to make sure I got that out, because this is how that's how the pandemic changed things. And it also changed other things, which I won't get into too much, because we have stay-at-home moms, people firing people, and
Mm-hmm.
a woman brought a discrimination
Let's
lawsuit.
not be prejudiced. We got stay-at-home dads too. But go ahead.
Whatever it is,
All
whatever your
right.
situation, there are lawsuits, and there should be a lawsuit. I don't understand, because I deal with it all the time. People have kids. We got to be realistic. Depending on your age group, somebody has a kid out there.
True.
Once you're
True.
above 23 or so, everybody has some child at home, whether there's their niece, and you will hear screaming. And I find it unfair. It's unfortunate people are expecting to have the office atmosphere where you hear nothing and it's zen. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be like that. We got to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So, so you have to have those precautions in place, because you will encounter lawsuits. And then with school closings, because you
Right.
have a lot of women choosing between, am I going to go in the workplace
The
in New
work.
York?
Right.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
or stay home with my kid, and they have to make a choice between survival. So
Yeah,
yes.
and I've seen it. I've seen friends that one of the major concern is the fact that, hey, school's closed. Are you going to provide me childcare? Because if you're not
Mhm.
going to provide me childcare, then I need to go. And if
Yeah.
you're going to reduce my hours or cut back my pay, then I'm best at home than I am at work. So right.
Yeah, so those are things that people have to consider, and you can bring a suit, and an employer needs to prepare for that. And that's what I'm saying about now. The pandemic has changed the legal world.
Mm-hmm.
You can only guide people, and this I know because behind the scenes, us lawyers got together, and there've been a lot of dialogue, a lot of talk, and people just don't know how to approach stuff. Because it's a new area. There's no real precedent. There's precedent, but then the pandemic messes up what a precedent is.
Mm-hmm.
So those are areas that the person who might be the injured party, the employee, and the employer has to consider. So
Right.
that is definitely an issue. And then the other thing I wanted to address before I get into landlord-tenant law, um, is that when you went with the pandemic and filing lawsuits, it's caused kind of a lot of sleepless nights, heartaches for lawyers, because the courts are closed. Guys, you're calling us as though we can do something with the judges.
All right.
Listen, they have families too.
True.
And
Yeah, that's true.
before courts, as you know, it was packed, especially in New York, to capacity. You walk
Mm-hmm.
into a room, people are spilled into the hall because everyone can't fit in the amount of cases that they process in a day.
Right. Right.
And then on top of it, when we were at the height of the pandemic, I think even in June, Mayor de Blasio was begging courts to open back up because they couldn't process the criminals.
Right.
And
Oh,
I,
yeah. Yeah.
I hear people blaming their cities, but the issue is that courts are now slower.
But
And
why
that,
is it that, quick question, before you get into the rental thing and continue, then why is it that New York State, when you file an LLC or any type of corporation,
Mhm,
one thing they want you to do is publish in the newspapers, right?
mhm,
And they want you to pay that fee. But during this pandemic time, a lot of people are forced to go become entrepreneurs and become independent. Um, why is it that they're not waiving it? You know, people are bypassing it right now because they're saying, I can't afford it. I need to start my business, right? So I can't go the traditional route where I
yeah,
go put it in the newspapers and wait for that X amount of days. I think it's like 45, no, a little longer than 45 days
Yeah.
just to get approval for me to operate in New York City. Why don't they just waive it to allow people to start their businesses?
I think they should waive it.
Hmm.
I think that's something they need to take up with their councilman,
Okay.
the congressperson, because that's the person running it. They can go to the board and have some, if people petition and say, hey, and contact them and say, as a business owner, people trying to start stuff, there's a publication fee and it's a problem. But I feel like it's always been a problem. I remember being younger, people, I don't want to say, I shouldn't say this is a lawyer, but people not paying it and running their business, businesses where the people are famous. I know this for a fact, but but on a serious note, people need to pick up the phone, contact your congress member,
Right.
contact the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. They are a very powerful business group here in New York. And when I say if you are in Brooklyn, doing business in Brooklyn, you need to be a part of that group. That group is very powerful. They make a lot of movements out of the Chamber of Commerce meetings
Hmm.
I have attended in New York. Those are number one, your main people, because they know who to call, where to call, and they can get them wherever they are, in the booth, in the back, in the corner, wherever they are, they know how to reach those people because they do care about business owners. New York City is strapped for cash. The mayor has
Right.
to furlough his salary and everyone else's. So if you are talking about business and bringing dollars into the city, they are going to care. So you have to call your Chamber of Commerce, and at almost, I would say, every Chamber of Commerce in New York City.
Hmm.
Talk to the
So
president.
there's one for every borough.
Yes, for every borough and even
Mhm.
neighborhoods. I know there was the Greenwich Village Chamber of Commerce I was a part of. They have a lot of people who are movers and shakers there. It was a very good group for me. It's just that I haven't had time constraints. I never got to go. I went once to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, but the one that I know that's live that business owners have talked to me about in New York City's Brooklyn Chambers of Commerce. That is a powerful group. They actually make movements, and it will help you as a business owner to make those connections and contacts. So you need to be calling them. You need to call your Congress, councilman, anybody who's a congresswoman or senator in your district, because they need to talk to them about waiving those fees. I think that's good. And if you can show financial hardship, they should actually waive it. Just like now they have car inspections that are due on October 31st, they pushed it back to November 3rd. It's people contacting their congressman. And then even look, the taxi drivers are talking and making news appearances. So I think that entrepreneurs need to do that, just like they've been getting at Bill de Blasio and Governor Cuomo about, yes, and you need to contact Governor Cuomo's office about that new lockdown with the red and the orange
Hmm.
zones. If you start to speak up, they're going to listen, because they initially were going to close all businesses, and people like, wait, wait, wait. We did it for 3 months. We cannot afford it. You are going to cripple us. And the city cares, because if I take away your finances,
Hmm.
that cripples you in terms of other markets like housing.
Right.
So they cannot afford to have that issue. And that brings us up to now housing. Housing during the pandemic, I've gotten a lot of calls. It's been distressing calls, mainly from landlords, because they may have been getting 60,000. Like I saw one case, the lady was making 60,000. She took her life savings, bought 6 homes, and she was only bringing in $12,000 in rent. People were not paying the rent.
Hmm.
Um, I think, and I've seen some heartbreaking stuff where I've seen landlords um, illegally lock out people. So I remember when we were talking about what we would discuss and what we would bring. I think that that is a hot topic that needs to be discussed, because God's blessed the both of us that we're doing well and prospering during
Hmm.
this time. I thank God. I'm
Yeah,
very
grateful.
grateful. Yes, because when you turn on the news, it's so disheartening to see
Yeah.
people in aviation, 100,000 jobs being
Oh,
lost.
trust me.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I just had someone who was talking to me, and I had to just sit there because they bought services before and just give free advice, because they
Hmm.
needed some quick cash and they had to make some movements.
Hmm.
And they were doing it on their own, but they just needed advice. And normally at this stage of the game, I stopped doing free things like that. but that pulled so much at my heartstrings. And then
Yeah.
you hear in Broadway, New York City, it brings in billions, 90,000 jobs.
Yeah. I actually, two things I want to say real quickly. One, a friend of mine did post, Faison, he posted something on his IG page where he said, I am so grateful that I didn't need anything during this pandemic. I didn't have a need. And when I read that post, it hits home because um, I guess that was a reflection for me to really give praise and say thank you, because I haven't had a need either.
Yes.
And I was grateful for that. The second thing is I spoke to somebody, Matt. He actually works. He's one of the drummers for Wicked, and
Oh,
we
wow.
spoke about Broadway. And one of the things that he mentioned was that Broadway never closed before. It used to be like snow from all the way up to your chin. Like, I'm exaggerating, but he said it still would not close. And now all of a sudden with this pandemic, it's like it's a Western town. Like
Yes.
you can hear the wind blow. There's nothing going on.
Yes, and that's why it's so important that most of the things that we're addressing, that it's not on a flowery level. It has to be on a deep level, and it has to be something that moves people.
Mm-hmm.
So he is absolutely right about that. And in New York City, we have things closing that haven't closed in 100 years. So that's why the pandemic is something that you can't ignore. It has to be addressed. It has to be talked about. Even though we see in different states people are getting out, but then you have a lot of people at home, and
Mm-hmm.
it's being shown in crime. People are
Yeah,
talking.
crime are going up.
Yes, and people
Mm-hmm.
are blaming, oh, it's this protest and that. No, guys, no, guys. When people
No,
don't have
poverty.
money, that's what they do. They will
Mm-hmm.
steal, they will do
Mm-hmm.
whatever to make sure their
Mm-hmm.
kids are fine. And I'm
And that's
sorry.
when drugs start to flourish too,
Yes,
because
yes,
people they start to lean on a lot of substance
yes,
just to cope with the reality, and the reality is not you know it's not in their favor, and I
oh,
understand that. I don't condone it, but I understand that.
yes.
And
We
but it definitely happens because of when the lack of money circulating.
Yes, and then I think that that's what people ignore, because there's a human side to everything. You can never just address one issue. I can sit there and talk about legal theory and all this stuff, but you have to address the human issue. And I
Mm-hmm.
think people are leaving that out. And the other thing is that the government can't pay the insurance, the unemployment benefits, and they're now processing claims from the summer. What the heck? So then
Right.
what are people doing? That's why you're seeing numbers go up. And that's the way it was at one point in New York. So,
I remember back in the late 80s or
yes,
early 80s, I should say.
yes, because people think, and these are personal opinions, it's not legal. People think, oh, the put more cops on the street, blah, blah, blah. All you're doing is increasing arrest rates. Okay. What changed and made this city get better during that time where it was dangerous? I remember you couldn't even wear, if you got a gold chain, engagement, anything, you could not wear it on the train. You could not travel with it because you don't know if you were coming home with it. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
would get your stuff. So the thing is, once the economy started booming and people who were of a certain low income backgrounds were getting
Mm-hmm.
money, it stopped. And we have to
Mm-hmm.
be real. The economy impacts everything.
Yeah.
So
And
people
that's why
just,
it's important to have like jobs like McDonald's.
yes, yes,
It's
people
really,
look down on it. Yes,
they look down on it. And I'm like, no, you need those type of jobs, because
yes,
those type of jobs keep people off the streets.
yes.
And when they're off the streets, they're not thinking with that criminal mind.
No, they're not. And the thing is, a job is a job.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people get lost in translation. This person has this degree. Why are they working there? Thank God they have that
They
option
got
to work
something,
there.
right?
Yes. And then the thing
Mm-hmm.
about New York, unfortunately, people are saying the city won't come back, but we know our city is going to come back.
Oh,
We bounce back. We're resilient people. And if you can
mm-hmm.
make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And I believe that that is the truth. Um, that is the truth of the matter. It's not being egotistical. It is a fact. New York will bounce back. It's the financial capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Point
It's
blank, period.
the city that
Just like
never sleeps.
Tokyo. Yes. Tokyo, Japan. Let's just be real. We are the financial capital. So we will bounce back. But New York, you could find people found jobs in anywhere that doesn't exist. Just living in so many different cities, those opportunities don't exist. So the thing is, when people are blaming protesters or other things, it's really people not getting money and the government not being able to pay on these benefits. That's why states opened up earlier.
Hmm.
Finances affect everything. It affects marriage. It affects everything, how you're raised, your background, your environment. So the thing is, people need access. So the thing is, for people that are in dire need and stuff like that, there are a lot of assistance programs. So I'm going to speak on landlord tenant. The thing is, I have a lot of landlords calling me, and the thing was Donald Trump implemented that federal moratorium, and people were angry because they said it messed with states.
Can you explain that?
Yes, a moratorium, he's saying that you cannot evict anybody from this time frame.
Hmm.
And that means that you're not leaving your place. Now, this is what I need to address because people are getting it all wrong.
Okay.
It does not apply to you. If you have a job and whether you're working from home or wherever and you're getting a paycheck, you still owe your landlord the rent. The people who still can't pay, you still owe the landlord the rents. What I recommend, if your situation is not so dear, give them something. Because when it's all said and done, you're going to be responsible for that money. Eventually, they'll be able to evict you. Nothing's concrete. Landlords are also trying to petition the government, and the government's thinking of providing some relief. So you offset their costs, because it goes back to what we said in contracts. The law likes to make both parties whole. How can I put you in the position that you were in before? And the law is thinking of how can we provide some kind of bailout, because we can't have people not paying their rent, like that woman who was making $60,000 in rent and now $12,000. People are not paying, not returning phone calls and things of that nature. But as it stands right now, you might not be able to be evicted or removed from your apartment, but you still will owe that landlord that rent. So we have cases that have been filed and they have calculated how much they owe. Now, has it gone or any dates been added for the case to be processed? No dates, no judge has been assigned. And that's really what's happening. So that's why I said lawyers are having a lot of frustration, because when it comes to landlord tenant law or anything else, you're seeing on the news, this case has been filed. That's all that's been done. It's been filed. There's no judge, there's limitation of services, and now they're processing everything online. And that is causing a major delay because they have to scan all those documents into the system. So for New York, we have a moratorium too. First, de Blasio said December 31st, 2020. And now, as far as I know, it's January 1st, 2020. And there are talks that it may even go into March, which would make sense because people really, we have to bounce back from this. We have to have something, and jobs have to be created because these people cannot pay their rents and will not be able to. So when I say that, I want to just be clear, because I have had landlords tell me people are not paying their rents because they listen to Governor Cuomo issue that. That is not for you. That is for the person who really is out of their job. They have no income coming in, and they cannot take the couple of dollars they have to put on rent when they have to put food on the table and they have kids to take care of and other bills. And they have to maintain their car in order to get a job because they need to drive to job interviews and things of that nature. So that doesn't apply to you. So the thing also that's heart-wrenching on the other side of it is I've seen people conduct illegal evictions and had the police come in while the girl was there and open up her apartment and change the lock on it.
Wow. But shouldn't the police know the laws as well?
They should, but people don't do the right thing. So when you're in a case like that, you want to dial 311 and report the illegal eviction. Report it immediately. The next thing is the housing court is open in New York, in Brooklyn. I don't know about, because Queens, they're like, nah, we're not open. When you call, they're open, but they're not open to the public.
Okay.
But what you need to do is get on Google on or whoever you need to go to get internet if your internet's not down because you can't pay, and look for legal aid. Legal aid is on, to the point that you have legal aid lawyers harassing regular lawyers for their clients. So go and get some free legal help. That's the good thing about this country. We have a lot of free stuff. You don't have access to that. So get on legal aid, call, try to get an attorney, and they will be able to reverse that. They take off your electricity, because we have them doing that as employees. You can get that electricity put right back on.
Mm-hmm.
If that landlord's doing that to pressure you to move. Because we've had a landlord in Texas, it broke my heart. They have issued a moratorium and people are not listening to. The guy came out with a gun over the people's head at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. at night, had it pointed at him with his family in the house and having a young child. You know how sick that is?
Yeah.
And the guy had him arrested, but he looked and turned to the news and said, you know, I still don't have a job. And I still owe him, right? And when he gets out of jail, I still can't pay him.
That's devastating.
Yes. And he said,
Yeah.
it's the pandemic. I don't feel like moving. And I can understand that moving, having to go to a new place. You don't know if it's disinfected appropriately and you're exposing yourself to possibly getting COVID. I can understand those concerns. So the thing I want to recommend to people, I wrote down some of the places. You have rent assistance. So I know the Catholic Charities, it was on the news, of New York, is helping people pay their rent. And where I've heard of rent assistance way before COVID was my church. They pay people's rent. A lot of these mega churches pay rent. So if you're a member and you've been there, they have you on record, take your bills to them.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know any notices you got to show proof that you really need the money, and they will help pay your bills. Pay the rent bill, because that's serious. You can't be a mom of three, single mom, having no form of support from the father, and you sitting there. There are a lot of resources out there for you to get rent assistance. That's one person. I saw United Way has free rent assistance, and you can drop the information in I guess when you post a video in the
Mm-hmm.
chat box.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
We could definitely do
Okay,
that.
I'll take
Anything
it. Yeah,
just send
to
it to
help
us
them
and
with.
we'll definitely, because
Okay.
as long as it's going to help some people, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, so then that's what we'll do. Then also United Way, and then I noticed New York government has an eviction prevention page. Go to the eviction prevention page. I'll give this link, and go there, and they tell you who to contact to also see if you could get some kind of free rent. So you want to see if you could tap into those those rent assistant programs, find out what organization, what charity is giving, and see if you could submit your bills. You have to have proof,
Mm-hmm.
because we have people that are not honest that will submit stuff. And
Falsifying, yeah.
yes, and that's what you want to take advantage of, and that page. The other thing I was going to say to people, you may be thinking, well, okay, Nicole, you told me that when the cases come due, I'll have to pay that money. Yes, you do. But sometimes when you go to court, if you can come up with the money that you owe the landlord, you will stay right there in your apartment if you want to. If you can come up with the money at the time the case comes and there's some kind of hearing by a judge. And sometimes you're able to settle with the other side, and your landlord still might allow you to stay there if your lease hasn't expired. So all hope is not lost on that end. So I guess that's pretty much what I wanted to cover and let the people know in terms of the law. I hope I covered it well.
No, you did.
Yes, it was a good talk. I felt like it was such a good talk. I enjoyed talking about the law, I guess, because I love the law. So it's easy
Yeah,
for
and
me
you
to
could,
just,
the thing is, you could actually hear the passion and the love to, I guess, try to make things whole, right? Like you
yes,
said, and I think that's outstanding. Not just outstanding, but that says a lot about having the right people in the right positions. Like you want the
yes,
right person there that's gonna care about the law and the people, and that's
yes.
the humane side of it. And I think that's great. Did you always wanted to become a lawyer?
Yes, I wanted to be one since I was like 4, because my
Since
background was,
4.
yes, my mom worked in law firms, and she would watch a lot of shows, and that's where it came up. I would sit there watching the shows with her as a kid. So whatever you do for parents, your kids observe you and they pick up what you do. And that was something I picked up and I never let go of.
Yeah.
So and it's crazy. I had a time where I nearly walked away? Yes. I was in law school, and the thing I want to tell anybody who's a law student who's watching this, or you're a lawyer, you will have moments where you want to quit. That is everything in life. And I
Mhm.
nearly walked away because I got a JD MBA. I was a joint degree. And I was more enjoying the business side. Law school was tedious. You're doing 10, 12 to 14 hours of studying your first year. I was like, guys, I'm out of here. I was getting ready to do the paperwork. And my mom was like, no, I don't think that's that. She was like, I think something else is just getting to you. She was like, those are temporary feelings. And I remember I went to my brother and I was like, she tried to talk me out of it. I think she's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, I agree with her. He was like,
Mm,
you should not quit law. And you will have moments that you're tested on. And just because everyone's gifted for something in life.
right. Right.
And you will be tested when you're
Mhm.
getting ready to walk into your destiny or a next level in life. You will be tested. And that's where people mess up. They quit things that they have been created to do. Like,
Right.
there's some people, no matter how many contacts, how many connections, they have all the connections in the world, and they cannot break into fields. It's because
Mhm.
they're not gifted for it. Whereas you have someone who has the talents and they're able to walk into those places easily.
Right. You still
Everyone,
got to put in the work, but
yes,
at least your talent is the one that's putting you in that position.
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And that's what I say, because sometimes you talk to lawyers and the things that I hear, like that case that I told you about, the ironclad gym contract. Somebody, I don't think you know this person, but she was studying to be a lawyer, and she was like, oh, you can't do it. And I was like, what? Where do you come up with that? I thought you fight. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the first thing. You
She's not
don't
from
sit there,
Brooklyn.
oh, you mean I can't do,
She
oh,
didn't.
oh
She wasn't
yes, and
raised in
I'm a lawyer.
Brooklyn.
You know what's the purpose of being a lawyer? Because
Right.
that's the thing you're gonna learn. And I think this is for the younger people and people in their 20s. The thing you're gonna learn, there are a lot of gray areas. In
Yeah.
any area you're practicing, their gray areas. It's not the textbook. So you
Hmm.
have to try to see how you can make it work for you, that gray area. And I'm not talking about gray area of doing wrong things. Now, no. But I'm talking about gray areas where there's no textbook answer. There's no
Hmm.
precedent. Like what we talked about, a lot of these things, there are no precedent. And you
Right.
just have to make judgment calls. Whereas before, with the legal worlds, there's a lot of a heed to caution, because it's real. You will lose your license, even though a lot of people don't know this, if you're not doing the right thing. And it's so heartbreaking to see lawyers practice law up to 50 and lose their license, or for doing some dumbness that they should have known not to do. And if they were gonna do it, you should have did it at 25, not now at 50.
Right. Right.
So yes, so you have to know how to strike, and sometimes you have to take risks. And will I make mistakes along the way? Yes, you will make mistakes. Hopefully they're not mistakes that cost you, because
Hmm.
that was a life lesson I had to learn. Some mistakes you can't bounce back from. I haven't made a mistake I haven't been able to bounce back from, thank
Hmm.
God. But there's some mistakes that are costly. There's
Right.
some mistakes that if you make as a lawyer, you'll become that case that we read about how you didn't file the paperwork or do things on time or hurt your client in a adverse way.
Hmm.
So there are mistakes that you can bounce back from, and there's some mistakes you make, there's no bouncing back. You're gonna have to take that loss, and you're gonna have to have some supernatural help to get out of there.
Right.
So yes.
If there's like one or two things that you can just summarize to help somebody that's looking to become a lawyer, what would you say?
One, make sure it's something you want to do, not because you want the money, because not every lawyer makes a lot of money. I think we have people that are successful in professions, and you have some lawyers who are struggling, who lie to people. I
Hmm.
remember this girl was debt free, owned a home that was worth 250K, probably more now. And someone who could barely pay her bills had not passed the bar. She's finally passed now, was telling her to go to law school. Law school costs a lot. So if you're going to make the decision and you're going to drop six figures or whatever the money is, make sure it's something you want to do, not because you think you're going to make a lot of money, because there are a lot of factors that go into whether or not you'll make money.
Right.
So make sure it's something that you want to do. Two, I think this goes for minorities, because I feel like there's less of us in the field, and I feel like there are a lot of discouraging factors, especially if you go to a PWI. You will meet people who will tell you things that you thought this nation was passed since 19 whatever year. However, you have to know your worth, you have to know your value. And just because you get certain grades or certain scores, or you have a professor tell you you don't have what it takes, trust me, you have what it takes. And your ancestors are proof that you have what it takes. So you will come out better than you started. And a lot of people that were at the bottom of the class were not considered top notch. A lot of them today, they paved careers and ways that are unimaginable. And some of them are actually making more than these gold star people.
Yeah, these Ivy League people, you're right.
Yes. So you have to believe in yourself. And it doesn't matter. All that stuff and the stress and the strain you're going through, it will help you. Make sure that you're proficient. Make sure you develop relationships. Relationships matter. I cannot stress this enough. Do not go in school, oh, I don't talk to people. No, you need to be networking. When I was in school, I was everywhere I needed to be. Everyone knew who I was. And I cannot stress, because I learned that, and I valued my relationships, because even people who you might not get along with today, when you get out of school, they might actually make some calls for you to get a job or get your foot in the door. So respect people, value relationships, socialize. Getting out means going to events, mixing with people. When someone has something, you could come by for 5 minutes, because that was the way I was. I'd be in and out. I was not concerned with being there from the beginning to the end. But get your name and your face out there. Try to meet with people. Get mentors, because mentorship matters. Your mentor may not be able to make a call for you, but they will help refine you to the point that you can reach levels that you never imagined. So that's what I would say. I would say, one, make sure you want to go. And I think I'm going to add a little bit more. One, make sure you want to go. Two, believe in yourself, because you're going to have a lot of people tell you what you're not. I mean, that's just the legal game.
Yeah.
We are professional haters. I'm sorry. We are. I love lawyers. I have friends I love dearly, but we are trained to be professional haters. Oh, don't do this. Oh my God. Yeah. That is how we are trained to think, and it comes in handy when you need us for those matters. So believe in yourself, know who you are, do not get stuck in a moment, because that moment will not be a lifetime. How you started is not how you're going to end. And three, mentorship. You need to mentors, and you need to cultivate relationships with people that are power players or on their way to be power players. And you don't have to seek them out. You'll know what rooms you fit into. And the rooms you fit into, you run with it. The rooms that you're rejected, you walk away from, because sometimes rejection is the blessing of God.
Oh,
Why do
my
I
God.
say that?
Yeah.
Because I remember sometimes I wanted to be friends with people or be down with people. And then God has a way of, you're not there, but then you find out some back information that, no, that wasn't a good fit.
No.
Or the person ends up having some kind of tumble that if you were connected, you'd have went down that path of either having public shame or humiliation. So understand that rejection is God's protection, and walk in the doors that you are supposed to walk into. And that can that can only come with guidance and knowing yourself, divine guidance. So I want to make that clear for anyone. You have to know yourself, and you'll learn yourself over time. When you're in 20s, you're unsure of yourself, and you're making mistakes. But as you get older and older, you develop confidence. And the main thing is, do not procrastinate. Make that call, make that connection, go to coffee, do a virtual happy hour. Learn how to cultivate relationships. You don't need all the money in the world, because I have known that. It's so important that you keep in contact with people, because people and your friends, even the ones that get on your nerve, have a way of cultivating stuff that you could never cultivate by just being by yourself. So stop with that stuff that you have to be a hermit. Oh, I don't mix with people. No, you need people. That's the only way you will succeed, because your crew sometimes won't have what you need, and you're going to have to step out that box and talk to people that you normally wouldn't talk to get to the next level. So that is where I'll end it at my life. But I had a good talk. It was nice talking to you. If you ever want me back on, I'll be back.
Oh, absolutely. Because we wanted to touch base on all these things, what's happening current with the pandemic, with the rental, and with the businesses, and the fact that with the whole law, how does it work? So we wanted to touch base on that first. But I know when you come back, there's a lot of things we want to talk about on the corporate side, as far as like how to protect yourself from intellectual properties, how to find the right lawyer, because there's some out there, like some questions that you need to ask a lawyer and before you even select them, right? Because you want to know their background. Like for you, like I want to share more of your background. Like when you intern in Los Angeles, you intern for the Exchange Commission, and you also work for a few other reputable companies.
Yeah.
So you have a background that you can really dive into, and you know there's history behind that. Versus other people, you know, you find out that they're a lawyer, then you ask them, okay, what have you done, or what's your history? And they can't provide much, or is not to the liking of someone that you think is a real professional, in my opinion. So definitely gonna get you back on to discuss all these things.
Yes, and now I'm not under contract, so I can talk. You gotta access those.
I remember that.
I can tell something.
Right.
Because I didn't value my experience until one day I had this lady write up what was my net worth, and I was like, "What? I'm not listening to these average people no more."
You came up, right?
Yes. So that's why the point 2, value yourself, comes in handy.
Oh yeah.
Then I can actually talk, because I have had experience, and we're going to talk about some of these cases that you've read in the news. I was probably one of those bottom feeders working on a case, but I have had knowledge from it, and they've made good coffee talk.
Yeah, so. No, we're definitely going to touch base on that. And the other thing, you said that when you walk in, I really like this one, when you said just walk in the rooms where you meant to be in, and those you don't feel comfortable, and walk out. And sometimes when you in a room or in an environment that you don't feel like you belong, sometimes it's okay to just say this ain't for me, because rejection, to your point, is also a positive thing, and you know where you're valued at. And if you know that you're not valued here, well, you could tell when you're valued, and how much value you're bringing in. And if you're not valued there, then it's okay to say, all right, I'll bring my talent someplace else. Someplace else will value me, and I'll do what I need to do there. And people look at it as a bad thing, and sometimes it's a relief. It's liberating, because now you know, okay, good, this ain't for me. I know where I need to be now. Now I know I got to start doing this. So it was great that you said that. And but I can't wait to get you back again. But I know we press on time. I'm very conscious of that, and I'm not trying to hold you up for too long. Okay. I just want to say thank you so much, and it was a pleasure having you, and we'll love to have you again.
All right, Sam. Bye, everyone.
Bye.